On a foggy, rainy day in October 2013, the 7,465-ton ship IT Interceptor was laying fiber optic cable approximately 400 miles west of Portugal. As normal operations and procedures continued on the ship, a young steward, 2 months into his marine career, reported an unusually potent mixture of homesickness and seasickness to the ship's chief officer. This is Legacy Survival Stories.
You're going down, Go down!
Legacy Survival Stories.
Welcome to the show. My name is Dan Latremouille. I'll be your host for Legacy Survival Stories. We're going to be bringing you a lifetime mariner, Jeffrey Douglas Waters, who is a friend of mine and has been in the marine industry for 30-some years and has recently transitioned to the Joint Rescue Coordination Center here in Canada. His knowledge and his experience speaks for itself. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you.
So today, as you know, the premise of our show, of our podcast, is to discuss some real life emergency events and try and put them in context, flesh out all the details of them, figure out what could have been done better, figure out the interesting little bits, and then hash them out in a way that hopefully will be interesting for the listener. So let's start with your story. You came to us with an emergency. Where were you guys at?
We were working approximately 400 miles to the west of Portugal. We were preparing the seabed for an upcoming new installation of a cable, and it was going to be going from the UK all the way down to Gibraltar. Okay, so just for clarification then, was this in your days with IT Telecom? It's my days with IT Telecom. Okay, so for the listener then, we're talking about a significantly large cable-laying vessel would this be fiber optic? It would have been fiber optic cable. That would have been the IT Interceptor. Okay, right on. So 400 miles to the west of Portugal? So we were out there. We were only going slow. We're dragging approximately 3-ton grapnel behind us, and we're looking for any crossing of cables, anything that's going to damage the cable that we're going to be laying with the main lay vessel, one of the big Alcatel vessels. So Alcatel? Alcatel Lucent is the largest cable manufacturer in the world. Okay. So most of the phone lines that we're using around the world are made in Calais, France, and it's like a spider web on the ocean floor. So I should have invested in them 20 years ago? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so you're on the IET Interceptor and you're prepping for cable laying? We're just going along, and with a crew of 60 to 70 people, you can run into some current medical situations that normally you can just go and see your doctor ashore, and in this case, I was the doctor. So one of the young fellows... Just for our background clarification, what are your medical credentials, JD? Medical first responder. At the time, I also had the 2-week, which would be similar to the rescue specialist course that the Coast Guard uses. Oh, actually, that is a pretty good program. And I took the 2-week course, did it right here in Halifax, and you're qualified to do intravenous injections. It's called a marine medical care, and the MMC program, it's a fantastic program for people like myself that you're out there, and we're doing transatlantic, transpacifics. Some of our crossings, like the trip to American Samoa, was 29 days from Panama Canal to American Samoa. That's a long, slow trip. It's a long, slow trip. Yeah. So if you're in the middle of that, and you are everything, you're the fire department, you're the doctor, you're the high school guidance counselor, you're just about everything. The social worker. The social worker. You get guys out there for, some of these guys are 3 and 4 months. And with the COVID right now, some guys are over a year on board a boat. So you become the social worker after a while. So 2 questions on that then. First of all, when approximately was this? This would have been around October 2013.
2013. Okay, so going back a little bit, but not too far. And when you say that you're the isolated work group and you're your own fire department and you're your own social worker and your own psychiatrist and your own doctor, you're, of course, referring to the fact that you're in the middle of the Pacific. And
In this case, we were in the middle of the Atlantic, but we were out there quite a ways. You've got to be self-sufficient. So your training kicks in, you rely on your own experience and deal with whatever the situation presents itself.
okay, the IT Interceptor, what's the size of that boat?
The Interceptor is 115 meters. She was the largest cabling ship in Canada. She was registered out of Barbados, but it was home port for us really was Halifax.
Right. What's the gross ton of that thing?
7,465 tons.
7,465 tons. All right, so it's not a pickup truck.
Not a pickup truck.
Okay, all right, so, all right, continue on with your story, please.
So the young fellow presented himself up in the wheelhouse and said he wasn't feeling good. And, well, he's mid-20s, away from home, a little bit of homesickness, a little bit of seasickness. And I think maybe you just go lay down for a while. So he was given the day off.
So how long into his hitch would this have been?
I think he was probably about 2 months in.
2 months. So that's 2 months on the boat.
2 months on the boat.
Any shore leave, any breaks at all, or is that just...
Shore leave is usually for a few hours, and the young fellow at that time was working in the galley, so the galley is probably the unsung heroes of the ship. I've always said that if I'm in the wheelhouse and it's a rough day, as long as I hang on, I put an X on the chart every 30 minutes and hang on with my coffee, who knows if I did a good job or not. The guys, the poor little galley slaves, I'm telling you, if they burn breakfast, everybody knows about it. And the poor cooks be called a blacksmith. They'll be called every name under the sun because everybody still wants their food.
Well, it's there's lots of different jobs. I mean, you got your deck crew, you got officers, you got engineers, you got your supernumeraries, you got technicians, you got carpenters, you got shopkeep. The only constant in basically all of that is everybody finds their way to the galley at some point to get a bite to eat. So
everybody finds their way to the galley, and all coffee cups will end up either in the wheelhouse or the engine control room. That's a constant. Doesn't matter nationality, trade. It doesn't matter.
So the crew on your vessel at the time, on the Interceptor at the time, that would be a fairly international crew?
It was the UN of cabling ships.
Okay.
We had crew from all over the world. It was a fantastic experience in that respect.
Excellent.
And you had a real mix of cultures. You had a mix of languages. My kids would come down and visit on the ship when the ship was in port. Unfortunately, my son can swear in 4 languages.
Well,
my wife's not so thrilled by that, but
you were proud.
Oh yes.
No. Say that again in Spanish. All right, so super international crew. All right, so back to our galley hand. He presents himself with some discomfort.
He comes up with some discomfort, and to me, it kind of looked like a little bit of seasickness. So, all right, you go lay down. Just have some crackers, and you got to have a little bit of hydration. Even if you throw up, well, you got to put something back in there. So we're trucking along, and it's probably 30 to 40 knots of wind, 3 to 5 meter seas. It's just one of those nasty. It looks like a beautiful day in Grand Bank.
Just another Tuesday
just
in the Grand Banks.
Another Tuesday in the Grand Banks, but we're off of Portugal, and fog, drizzle, just particularly nasty. And I put my head down. I get back up for the change of watch at 0400. Second mate's up there. I'm going to relieve him, and who comes into the wheelhouse but the young steward? And I'm like, this is not going to be good. And he's holding his belly at this point. All right, let's take a look. And he's got a fever. He's got start doing a quick examination of him, and take a look at his belly. And I pushed in on his lower right abdomen. It's fine when I pushed in, but like when you released, that's when the pain hit. I'm like, oh no. Classic sign of appendix.
So you're clearly thinking appendicitis.
Yeah. It's you're thinking down that road at that point. So I was like, all right, you come on over here and get comfortable in the seat. I went over and I gave the old man a call. So the captain comes up to the bridge, and the captain had the exact same thing happen to him when he was a young deckhand.
To himself?
To himself. Okay. So he took one look at that, called me out in the bridge wing for a management meeting over a cigarette, and we got to get him off of here. So we have a wonderful system throughout the world, which I'm now a part of, the rescue coordination system. And you go on to sarcontacts.com.ca rather, and you can actually see all of the RCCs all around the world.
Really? Say that again. What's the website?
sarcontacts.ca.
Oh, check that out. I did not know you could do that. I figured there had to be a site somewhere where you could see all the rescue centers around. But
It's again, I had no knowledge of this until I was actually part of this system.
Oh, so it's a secret.
It's not a secret. It's actually out there, and it's in the manuals, and it's in the wall library of manuals that's on every boat.
Yeah, which people don't realize that every vessel, every platform, every facility out there has got some, 20 by 20 room that's just floor to ceiling, wall to wall, stacked with every manual and textbook and nautical thing and engine room thing and radar fixing thing.
It will have all of your sailing directions. Now, most of the vessels in the world will use British Admiralty because they do a worldwide coverage. If you're just going to be here in Canada, or my own sailboat, for instance, I use Canadian Hydrographic Service charts. So I've got Halifax, Bedford, Charlottetown, PEI. I've got Canadian charts made by the Canadian Hydrographic Service. But if you're working internationally, you can't go to every little country. So what you would do is you would have a world folio, which we used to have, and British Admiralty does the best job of it.
Okay, right on.
And you can have a book for every region. There's one for the east coast of Canada.
So I got to ask then, was there a how to fix a busted appendix? Is there a book on that in there?
That would actually be down in the hospital because we had a 3-bedroom hospital on board the vessel.
Oh, that's good for a vessel. That's impressive facilities.
It's international standard.
Really?
You can, because our vessel was registered in Barbados, we call ourselves British Light. So we would go by the marine guidance notices. So, for instance, on our vessel, the MSN 1768 is a marine safety notice that's promulgated by Trinity House. And they would say, if you have this many crew, this is the medical scales you have to have on board. In our case, we were more than 40 people, so we had medical scales for in excess of 40 people.
When does it get to like a full-scale nurse or a paramedic?
After 100.
After 100.
After 100.
Okay.
Now, in a change that will be coming here to Canada is the MMC, which I had at the time. In Europe.
That's your marine medical care, the one you were... Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
From my license here in Canada, my Master Home Trade Chief Officer Foreign Going, I have to maintain my medical first, the Marine Advanced First Aid. It's a 5-day course here.
Right.
In Europe, for my comparable license, I would have to have the MMC. So chief officers and masters and possibly even chief engineers and second engineers, they have to have the 2-week course.
All right. So in the circumstances that you're in off Portugal in the setting we're referring to, it's you.
It's me.
Okay. All right. So you're having your cigarette management discussion with the old man, the master of the vessel.
Right.
And you guys decide you got to get him out of there.
So at that point, second mate is still up. Normally, your second officer is your medical officer. I was fortunate enough that the second mate was an old friend of mine, and he was a rescue specialist when he was in the Coast Guard.
Okay, so
I had talent.
Experience.
I had some talent on board, which came very fruitful for me later on. So what we did is we changed over the watch. I took the con of the vessel. The captain stayed up and around so he could see the big picture, and I called the cadet up. It was battlefield promotion. All right. Congratulations, you're driving. You tell me what you're going to do before you do anything. And the next thing I had to do, I just stop, take a deep breath, pick up the radio, and made the phone call to Rescue Coordination Center Lisboa, which is every country will have their own rescue coordination center. Here in Canada, we're such a large country, we actually have 3. We have one here in Halifax, where I work.
Mm-hmm.
We have one in Trenton, and then we have one out in Victoria, which spans right across the country. Most countries are smaller, so Portugal, you have Lisboa.
We do have a fair bit of square footage in our region.
We do, and in fact, my center is so large, we have 2 daughter stations as well. We have one in Quebec City, and we also have one in St. John's, Newfoundland.
I knew there was one in St. John's. I did not realize there was one in Quebec City as well. Yeah, so that would be St. Lawrence coverage. And
St. Lawrence coverage, and they'll do a lot of the south shore of Quebec.
Okay.
So if you're up around Havre Saint-Pierre or the Anacostia Island, and they'll come down to about Gaspé, and then around Shippagan, that's where we take over.
Gotcha. So you're talking to then Lisboa? RCC Lisboa?
Lisboa. The pronunciation, the anglicized is Lisbon, but the proper pronunciation of the city is Lisboa.
I thought you didn't speak Portuguese.
That's as far as I can speak.
That and a couple of cuss words.
That, a couple of cuss words, and I can order a beer or 2.
Okay, there you go.
I contacted them, and with the RCC, what we have is we can request Medico. And back in the old days, where you had your list of signals, the International Code of Signals, you could actually go into it, and you could just say on the radio, Medico, and another country would you have to do. You're looking for a doctor. I parallel park boats for a living. I'm not a doctor. I can put Band-Aids on, and I can do minimal, and I can pick up scratch knees and whatnot. And but I'm not a medical doctor. I can see what's presented to me, but that's not my forte. So what a mariner such as myself can do is I can contact the RCC. Here in Halifax, I can patch a doctor through directly to the master of the vessel or the medical person on board the vessel. And the doctor can ask the questions.
Okay, so basically the RCC Lisboa or RCC Halifax, wherever, can become sort of a connection point.
They're a middleman, yeah.
Bring in a doctor and, okay, you get on the horn with this person out there on a boat. They got an issue that needs...
Correct.
Okay, excellent. All right. So this is what RCC Lisboa does?
That's what Lisboa does. And what we did is we contacted them, and they put a doctor through, a patch through, and okay, here's his vitals. Here's what's been presented to us, and palpated his lower right abdomen. And yeah, it sounded like a appendix, fever. He's got it bad. So a medevac is recommended. We have to get him off as fast as we can. We've got gear in the water. We start, I call the bosun out on deck, and we start recovering the gear off the seabed. And once that's done,
so can you sort of emergency disconnect, or do you basically have to haul some gear back on?
We have to haul gear back on board. If I absolutely had to, I can take the acetylene, or I can.
Oh, so it's literally like you physically go out and cut it. There's not like an emergency shear or something. You have to physically axe hatchet that thing apart, kind of thing.
Yeah. In this circumstance, we were able to recover the gear off the bottom because we were just driving in a grapnel. Just put yourself head to wind, got control of the vessel, and recover everything back on board.
Gotcha.
But it's still 30 knots of wind, and it's drizzle, and the helicopters have to be within 200 miles of shore.
And that's just a straight range of they can only go so far without taking on fuel.
That's it. And even the rules are that if you had to do max fuel, you could land on a oil platform, for instance, or something. If you're going out to get somebody, but you can't plan to hit that oil platform on the way back. The whole idea is what happens if there's a problem at the oil platform or the visibility, you can't get in there. And now you're running low on petrol on the way back to shore. So the rules are you can do a hop on the way out, but you have to be able to, when you get to the hoisting, it has to be a straight shot back to land.
Okay.
That's just, that's a safety thing for everyone.
No, it makes sense. If you're a helicopter and you suddenly can't land on the thing you're aiming for, well, there's nothing around you but Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean. No. It's not a great set of circumstances.
It's a little unnerving. I know the first time I was in a helicopter, I was actually flying out to join a vessel down in the Gulf of Mexico, and like you're looking down and you can see the sharks. It's like, Things are different now. I'm having
Just
to
remember the rule, though. You don't have to swim faster than the sharks.
just faster than your buddy beside you.
Just one other person.
Back in the old days, I mean, I didn't have the training that I have now with my Hewitt training, and you didn't have the knowledge of how would I get out of this helicopter if it's in the water. Well, back in the old days, you watched a wore out VHS tape, and somebody hands you a Mae West vest and said your bird's out there on the platform.
Off you go.
Off you go. If I knew then what I know now.
Yeah.
So they couldn't get a helicopter out to us, so the option was get closer.
So you were 400 miles. Max range is 200 miles. So
I gotta head towards land.
So what's top speed of the Interceptor at the time?
We put the third engine online that night. Normally we run with two engines. She was a diesel electric, so we ran called the chief engineer. I had everybody out of the bunk at one point. And chief, I need more spot. I got to get in.
Did you? Please tell me you said it. Please tell me you said, I need more power.
I need more power. I feel a need for speed. We got all three main engines online and diesel electric. The chief engineer stayed and babysat his engines all night long, and I spent a long time in the wheelhouse. The captain was up and around, and the cadet was loving it. He was driving. He was his time. So
his battlefield promotion suddenly turned into probably the fastest the ship has ever gone.
It was the fastest I have ever pushed that poor old girl, but it was necessary because there was no. He was circling the drain. He really was.
So how fast did you end up getting it up to?
Got her up to about 16.5.
16.5 knots. So to the layman out there, that's probably about 25, 26 kilometers an hour, somewhere.
Yeah, about that.
Somewhere around there. So doesn't sound fast to a person off the street, but when you got 7,500 tons of steel blasting through 7-meter waves,
I could drive it through a school zone here in Canada, and I would never exceed the speed limit. For us, that was moving. That was moving for her.
All right. So how long did it take you to get back in the?
We were almost 24 hours going straight.
That's just full blast, hammer all the way down.
Hammer down.
Engineer sweating the whole time. Chief engineer sweating the whole time.
Yeah. She had big saucer engines in her, and she was still probably one of my favorite ships. She handled really well. But we were running as fast as we could, and we were on a communication schedule, a comm sched with Lisboa. So every 2 hours we called, and we would give the vitals to the RCC, and that would be passed along to the doctor for us on our behalf.
So, and what were the vitals looking like? Was it a deteriorating situation?
He was deteriorating, and he was going fast.
So for people that, and I'll count myself here, that I've done all kinds of first aid training, but I've never had to do anything with an appendix. So what happens there? Like your appendix pops, it goes to crap?
It burst. Where he wasn't feeling well, he was there's poison was leaking out.
Okay, so whatever's inside the appendix is not meant to be mixing with the rest of the stuff.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I've done 3 medevacs off of our vessels.
Related to appendix?
Related to appendix.
You're bad luck.
I am bad luck.
Start checking my abdomen now. So you're watching this guy, you're banging away 24 hours straight, hauling ass as fast as the boat will go, and watching this guy's vitals. So, like, is he still conscious? Is he still with it? Or
he slipped into unconsciousness on us. I was getting updates from the hospital. As the poison was going into him, it's called going septic. So he was going jaundice color, and being Filipino as well, he was already of a darker complexion, but he was getting very, very yellowy. Very, very hot and sweaty, and his pulse was rapid, and breathing was wonky. He was going into shock as well.
What were you guys doing, sort of treating for shock, trying to keep him comfortable? Did you put him on, like, O2?
We put him on oxygen.
Yeah.
I just put it on low. His body was in distress, so it's like, okay, we put it on low. We had the mask on him. We didn't have the cannulas on him. We just had the non-rebreather on him, and just oxygen on low. and that seemed to help him for a bit. When he slipped into unconsciousness, the next thing was he kept trying to knock it off of him.
Really? So he's lying there unconscious,
And still, he would try and knock the mask off his face. So
to be fair, I have one of those stupid CPAP machines, and I constantly try and tear that thing off. It's no fun trying to sleep with an octopus stuck to your face.
I've heard that. I got another story about octopus some other time for you.
All right, we'll back burner that one for now.
That one, yeah. So yeah, we ended up having to tie his hands down.
Really?
Yeah, we had to tie his hands.
So this poor unconscious kid who's on like his first or second hitch out there, he's in there for 2 months, and you're tying him down. So
I got his hands tied so he wouldn't. We didn't have him tied down, but we had his hands tied so he couldn't knock the oxygen mask off. We got running along, and then the next problem that presented us, the weather is still crap, and because of the way that the weather patterns go, everything boils up right down by Portugal there. It's one of the worst anchorages that I've ever been in.
So if we're looking at sort of a Google Earth map of Portugal there, and coast of it running more or less north-south.
When you have weather building up across, like in Halifax Harbor here, it's a small little harbor, so you don't get the fetch. Here, you're getting weather. You're getting the swells. You're coming all the way from Florida.
Right, so
it's coming right across.
all the way across.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
I've spent nights in the anchorage there. I thought we were going to snap an anchor chain.
Just sitting at anchor.
Just sitting in anchor. You're rolling that hard.
See, this is why people don't own boats, because you just sit there and worry about what's going to happen. Even when you're not on the boat, even when you're not doing anything, if it's bad weather out there, what's happening with my boat? What's happening with my boat?
All I could think of is, as we're rolling there, I'm laying in my bunk one night in the anchorage. We were doing a project going down to Gibraltar, and as I'm laying there in my bunk, all I could think of is that picture of Bedford Basin Yacht Club pile up after Hurricane Juan at the bottom of Sackville River.
Yeah.
That's where I keep my boat is, and I was sure we were going to shear off an anchor chain that night.
Good heavens.
So we started going across, and there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that area. So all the traffic leaving Northern Europe, anything heading to South America or into the Mediterranean, or anything that's headed for the Suez Canal, goes past Portugal. So there's large traffic lanes, very similar to here off of Halifax. We've got
except probably with a bit more volume of traffic.
Bit more volume and much larger. So you're dealing with large vessels like the Maersk has the Triple E class, like the Emma Maersk.
Those big giant, whatever they call them, Panama class.
Post-Panamax. They will not fit through the Panama. Even the new Panama Canal, they won't fit through those.
Wow.
So you're talking stuff that's almost 1,000 feet long.
So there you are in your 115 meter, call that 350 feet vessel, and you're feeling pretty small.
Pretty small. Same as here in Halifax. Halifax traffic, the inner harbour, they monitor channel 12. The outer harbour outside of Duncan's Reef, they monitor channel 14. So you have the two areas, two zones, if you will.
You're talking about in Portugal now?
In Portugal, they have something similar to us here in Halifax. And Lisbon traffic called me, and they didn't know what's going on. All they saw, I'm crossing the traffic lanes, and I'm not allowed to.
So they had not been notified by...
Two different entities.
Okay, so here, Halifax Traffic and RCC, I would expect there to be, because...
There's still communication back and forth. I'm separate. But we talk to each other on a regular basis, and we give each other a heads up. And I'll call...
but it's informal.
No, it would be formal if something was coming in.
Okay.
If there was a vessel that was in trouble, normally I would call Halifax Traffic and I would tell them.
Yes, give them the heads up. Okay, but that didn't happen for you.
Not that night.
Okay.
Not that night. And again, it was just one of those things were going sideways. Lisbon Traffic called me, and they were doing the right thing. They saw something that I was interfering with their...
Yeah, here comes
vessels.
This other vessel screaming across the traffic lanes.
Who's this Yahoo? So I got on the radio. I had the cadet still driving, and I'm like, just you do your thing. I had extra lookouts up in the wheelhouse, and because I'm barreling through in bad weather. And I had 2 radios on like that, and I had Lisboa traffic, and I just said I've been in contact with RCC Lisboa, and I've been ordered as fast as possible for Lisbon. And Cascais is just outside of Lisbon, and right around just to the north of the anchorage there. So there's a little place. And they said, well, we'll call RCC Lisboa. And next thing I heard was IT Interceptor. This is the Lisbon traffic. Make best speed for Cascais. We will have everything arranged for you.
So
Next thing
finally a little bit of good news.
It was good news. They did an amazing job for us. All the stars all of a sudden lined up, and they were calling all the other vessels. I have a medical on board this vessel. Please avoid.
Oh, how about that?
So once everybody was in the loop, it was just everybody was taken out of our way, and I kind of felt a little privileged. So all of a sudden, I've got these big Tripoli container ships, super tankers going around me. They all avoided us. It's just a professional courtesy we'd all do for each other.
Sure, but what a great job by the traffic centers in Lisbon to, like, okay, let's take care of this. Let's help these guys out. They got a serious situation here.
So they just left us to do what we needed to do, and they called everybody else. And they were a great asset. We still had to do our collision avoidance, and we had to maintain good watch and whatnot.
Well, I expect nothing less from a Canadian trained mariner.
Absolutely. Anyways, they everybody just went around us. We were watching them on radar, and you could see when we got into about a 10 mile, and they altered. And
so, are you all the way back, getting close, like into?
We're getting close in at that point.
So I'm where I'm going with this is, so you had been aiming for the 200-mile mark.
The weather never improved.
So they couldn't fly because of the weather.
Couldn't fly because of the weather.
So you, at some point, you were along there, you're chugging along, you hit that 200-mile mark, and you're like, okay, finally we made it, and then no can do.
No can do, and that was part of the whole comms kit, because we were in constant communication with RCC Lisboa. So every 2 hours, give a quick update, give our position, our speed, continue our ETA for Cascais, and which is outside of Lisboa there, and give me a weather op. Well, it's crap. It's a beautiful day on the Grand Banks. And even when we got within range, we just kept looking at it. Okay, well, the next 2 hour notice. And then I was like, yeah, this is just not going to happen, because the diminishing returns, how fast can the boat get in, as opposed to...
Yeah, and at some point, it's not safer and better to use the helicopter if it's only... Yeah.
No, you're putting those other guys at risk, so it's just a diminishing returns at that point. It's okay, well, do we send the chopper up there and we save 20 minutes?
So you've been blasting full steam, flat tack, all engines maxed out for 24 hours to get to the 200-mile mark. The weather sucks.
Well, we actually, the 24 hours got us right into Lisbon.
Okay,
we passed. We blew right through it. We got to the 200-mile limit. It's all right, we can't do anything. All right, we'll just keep coming. So every 2 hours, give a check-in, a comm sched, and here's our position, here's our speed, weather. No, not today.
All right, so now you've crossed through the traffic. You've got the excellent help from the traffic services in Lisbon. They've directed everybody else to kind of steer clear, let you guys do your thing. So now you're coming screaming into. We're
coming in hot and heavy. We're coming up to the anchorage, and we're all up on the bridge at that point. The young fella at this point, he's unconscious. The second mate and the third mate and the bosun. We had a real cagey bosun. And
when you say cagey, do you mean like in the wise veteran savvy, or the salty, unpleasant sort of cagey?
Yes. Bosuns have to be that way. They don't get it's part of the checklist.
Okay, copy that.
He could do rope work that was just absolutely phenomenal. And he made a bridle and whatnot, and we rigged stuff up, and he got all hands up on the upper deck, and we ended up rigging up block and tackles, I just told him what I wanted, and he's like, "Okay, chief." That's all I had to worry about was he said, "Okay, chief." I stayed up in the wheelhouse, and he did his thing. He had a block and tackle rigged up. The only way to get him off the boat, because they were going to send a cutter out to us.
So, okay, so at this point, the helicopter is not in play anymore.
No
It's not
longer
an
an
option. So now they're going to send a smaller boat out to you, and now you got to transfer what functionally is an unconscious
individual.
person. So you put him in a stretcher, presumably.
We had the Stokes litter basket, the wire cage, and we had a couple of floats on either side in case he didn't make it onto the boat. But we had that ready to go. We had him in there. We had the oxygen tied down by his legs.
What are you using to get it over the side? Do you guys have a crane boom or something on board?
Well, that's where the deckhands came in and the cagey bosun.
Okay, here's where your nifty cagey boat work goes, or your rope work. All right, okay.
So we had block and tackles rigged up on the deck above the gangway, the pilot door. It's the door on the side of the ship that you put your gangway to come on and off.
So again, for frame of reference here, the side of a ship, the freeboard of the Interceptor would be, and I've seen it, but if I'm going back, you got to be 50 feet.
You're about 50 feet, yeah.
Okay, so that's if a person's looking at the ship, when you look up the side of the ship to where sort of you can see a person and it's not just the hull of the ship anymore, you're talking 50 feet-ish. So this cutter's going to come out to you, and a cutter, and I'm picturing something similar to, say, the Sambro type.
Little smaller than the Sambro, somewhere between the Zodiac and the Sambro. So
A big Zodiac?
Like it would be like a big Zodiac.
Okay, so you're talking like a 30, 35 foot
Yeah.
powerboat type
Yeah.
thing. Okay, and now you got, which would have a freeboard of
Next to
3
nothing.
feet.
Exactly.
So now you got to get your unconscious person in your Stokes litter without a crane down about 30 to 30 foot. Well, no, I guess it would be more like 40 to 45 feet.
With the door on the side there, we put him out through there on purpose because it was less. So
Okay.
you're probably 25 to 30 feet.
Okay, well, that's still farther than I like to fall.
Exactly. It's kind of like the old joke, don't approach a dock any faster than you want to hit it. Well, don't go up any higher than you want to fall.
Then you're prepared to fall back down.
And I don't like heights.
No.
So what we ended up doing is we got him as ready as best we could. We got the block and tackle ready. We got everybody up top that was ready to manhandle the rope. And we had the door open. We had the line in.
So this door, you're talking about the door that a lot of people who are sort of not savvy with boats wouldn't realize that somewhere in the side of the ship, right smack in the middle of the hull, there's a door that opens. And so you're working outside this door. And this is just a door that opens to nowhere. If you stepped out this door, you're straight down
swimming.
to the drink. Yeah. All right. And now you've got this boat beneath you.
What happened was we were screaming in, and all of a sudden we came through the fog, and it was just like coming through a wall. Similar to coming in at Halifax. Sometimes you're in total fog. You come through Majors Beach. As soon as you get through Majors Beach, it's a beautiful summer day here in Halifax.
Yeah, there's some weird fog in this harbor.
There is some weird. Well, there's other places. Lisbon's another one like that. So all of a sudden we came through the fog, and I reached over and grabbed both sticks for the two engines and pulled them back.
Finally haul her back.
I hauled her back to the relief of the chief engineer. And
He finally breathed after 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And just as I'm hauling back on the engines, Lisbon traffic calls me and says, there's a rescue craft on your starboard quarter. I ran to starboard bridge wing, and sure enough, he's pacing right along, textbook perfect, right by my starboard quarter. So what we did is we communicated with him. His English was a little broken, but he was able to understand us well enough, and he came up alongside. We picked the young fella up, put him out through, and lowered him down. Had a couple of taglines so he didn't spin.
So I'm trying to picture this. You got a couple people with the lines right outside the door, and then probably up on deck, you got your
10 guys
10 guys
on a block and tackle.
So all basically supporting this
taking the weight.
This poor unconscious appendix victim.
And we lifted him up. The bosun just he choreographed it, and we stood back, and we lifted him up. We put him out through, turned him, and then they had the weight. And once the rescue craft came directly underneath, we lowered down.
So you're lowering this guy down. A ship on the move. You're probably, I'm guessing, in 6 to 8 knot range.
I think it was 5 knots he asked me to go. So,
Okay.
you're checked back, similar to a pilotage.
Right.
You don't want to be stopped.
No. No, people always wonder that. Why don't you just stop the boats? Because two boats together in the water, they don't act like one boat. But if you can get them to go together at the same speed, they start to do the same thing.
So they did the classic. They came in, put their shoulder onto the side of my hull, and just sort of came off a couple of degrees. So he's pinned alongside. So he's stable. We lowered him down. We put him on top of their wheelhouse. They put 2 straps across him to secure him there in the basket, undid the hook, gave a wave, came up on their throttles and headed off into Cascais.
The proverbial sunset.
Into the proverbial sunset. One of the things you have to consider is you are entering a foreign country. So it's not like when you arrive in Halifax Airport when there's immigration there. Well, you have to send them off, and you're dealing with, for your legalities, you have to have the ship's agent involved. So we contacted our agent in Lisbon and said, "Hi, we have a problem. We got to come in."
we get
Houston, we have a problem. This is a good one. So what you do in a situation like that, you get the guys' effects together. In these days, you'll throw his cell phone, his passport, his patient care records. So what do we do before he's presented to the medical authorities ashore? You put that in. Sometimes you can throw a few dollars in there, just help the guy out.
Are you being serious?
I'm serious.
Oh, this is for him.
For him.
Okay, so that fingers crossed he comes through all this. Like he's got $100 to get a cab kind of thing or get a bite to eat.
Yeah, a little bit of something, because otherwise you're in a foreign country and you got nothing.
Yeah, some international worker. You said he was a Filipino?
He was Filipino.
So Filipino, poor first, second trip out there, and he suddenly goes unconscious on a ship. Next thing he wakes up in a hospital in Lisbon.
I've done worse, but yeah. That's a story not for the air.
Yeah, we'll catch that one
yeah,
after.
Yeah, definitely. But what you have to do is the formalities are you have to have a passport. So you put all that. Normally what I've done in the past, I put that in a Ziploc bag in case the individual ends up in the water, even just sprayed. If water comes up and spray from an FRC or whatnot. Put all that information in there with the person inside of their life jacket, inside of their coveralls, whatnot, so it doesn't get lost or dropped in the water. Mm-hmm. And the agent will take care of that individual when they get to shore. So he will make sure that there's an RCC Lisboa would make sure that there's a ambulance waiting at the dock, and the agent would make sure that he is taken care of from when he arrives on the dock. He's working on our behalf, and he would take the seafarer up to the hospital, and within an hour and a half, he was under the knife, and they saved his life. He's still actually working for them.
No kidding.
No kidding. So every now and
not scarred forever and put off the sea life.
No, he took that as a sign. Like, okay, well, maybe this is what I should do. Everybody's gonna. We all helped him out. He did return back to the vessel a couple of days later, and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't fly. We ended up going into Lisbon, and we were there for a few days. So we brought him on board with us. And it's like, all right, you're going to go lay down. You can't fly. You can't lift anything. You can't take your gear. You can't do anything. You just take your time. And we took him up for his outpatient visit and whatnot, his follow-up, and brought him back to the boat. And we all took turns. I mean, I was helping clean. I started as a steward in the galley back in the late 80s, so I grabbed a mop and broom, and we were all helping our buddy out.
Sort of covering off the duties.
Because, as I said, the galley slaves, they don't get a break.
No, and when you're on, people forget this too. It's not going to sea is not like sort of a 9-to-5 type job. When you go out there, like these people are around you all the time, all the time. Like there's nowhere to go. You can't just you know what, I'm gonna screw off and go to a movie tonight. Like everybody is on that boat together. So there's a certain amount of, and you don't like everybody either. So it's a lot like family.
Well, yeah, it is. My grandfather was a sea captain, and some of the sage advice that he gave me over the years, one was that you're going to make friends very quickly on a boat. You're going to make enemies even faster.
Good tip.
Truer words were never spoken. So yeah, if you get into a disagreement, back when I was on tugboats and whatnot, if you got into a disagreement with your roommate at as you're getting up, going on watch, you go out and work together. You've had breakfast together, you have lunch together, and then after supper you clean up together, and you're still kind of salty with each other. Well, guess what? You're watching a movie together. You learn to get along with people.
Yeah. At the end of this all, how long does the Interceptor end up staying? So the vessel you're on, how long does it end up staying in Lisbon? How long are you there?
We were probably 4 or 5 days while we were in Lisbon.
Okay.
We were in there. We took an opportunity to do a crew change, and we were able to get our seafarer back with us. Lisbon was really cool. It was my first time to Lisbon. I got to, as a navigator, I actually got to see the tomb of Vasco da Gama. Some aspects of this job is kind of cool.
Well, yeah, you end up with this sort of, I won't call it a vacation, but forced downtime?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, once you got all your work and whatnot done, we would rotate out, and I got to visit a little bit of the city. Parts of the job that I've had I sailed for 31 years. I've gotten to see some really cool places. I missed it, but the crew opposite, they were in Jerusalem, but they were in Haifa, Israel on Christmas Eve. And
Wow.
The boys went to Jerusalem on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
Been to some other places. I was in North Africa. North Africa during Ramadan. That was another interesting experience.
Oh, I imagine it'd be amazing.
Walking around with some of the guys brought fresh dates on board the boat. And
So everybody had to go to the bathroom a lot? Not long.
Yeah.
You had to go to the bathroom in shifts or what?
Well, that was Brazil after eating the iguana.
Okay, well, we have reached the end of the proverbial journey that Jeff has taken us on. So we started off 400 miles off Portugal with a homesick, possibly seasick, relatively new worker who 24-ish hours later was having his life saved in Lisbon after what sounds like an incredibly intense ordeal. Redlined engines, helicopter attempts, and vessel transfers, and block and tackle with an unconscious person over the side.
Just you never know when the phone rings when you're in your day room. You just never know what's going to happen next.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there, and I will say thank you very much, Jeff. I'm going to call you JD because I can't do it any other way, and we're definitely going to have you back on the show because it's not hard to tell. There's a bunch of stories buried under the cagey.
Some I can tell, some I can't.
Well, that's fine. We'll get to all that. So thanks very much, Jeff, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you again soon.
All right, thanks.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and help us move up the charts with a 5-star rating. We like comments and reviews, so we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, and almost anywhere you can find podcasts. If you've got an interesting story, or think you know someone who'd make a great guest on the show, please reach out to us at legacysurvivalstories, all one word, @gmail.com. You can also find us at legacysurvivalstories.buzzsprout.com.
Hey, you're going down. Go down.
Legacy Survival Stories.